I heard you saying at your DC presentation that it's important for you that the public understands what early childhood educators are actually doing for society and how important it is to educate young children, and that many people just think that you're just playing, but what does this mean? So did you feel like you got that part across?
Yeah, I think that, that is understood, and I think that there's just so much work to do, because while I do think that it's gaining understanding of like what early childhood is and why the early intervention in early years are so critical for development, I still think that there's work to be done. So whenever to advocate, whenever to talk about what we do, whenever to share, and that's why as being the 2020 State Teacher of the Year for Delaware, it was such an honor and an excitement to share about this work, to share about the importance of early education, the value in it, the true like developmental leaps and gains that happen in the first 5 years of life. I often talk, and it's funny, I have like, everyone says, oh, that's like your line that 90% of the brain is developed by age 5, but it is the truth. I mean, when you think about that, and when everyone's like, oh, like you just teach preschool, I'm like, you're right. Like I just teach preschool, and it is this year where their language, their cognition, their connection, everything is developing at a faster rate than any other point in their life. It is a very exciting place to be, just preschool, and people need to really understand and know why it's so important and how we can increase access for all children to have access to high quality early learning opportunities. Because, we look at if we're looking at creating equitable opportunities, it needs to start right away. It needs to start in those early years. And I think that that's something that needs to be advocated for and pushed.
Well said, Rebecca. I'm glad having such a strong advocate out there.
Absolutely. And I mean, you have to. I always also say that, my children, they cannot yet advocate for themselves. So it's our job as educators and as leaders to advocate for those who can't do it yet. And I see that in my children all the time. I think that it's their stories and their experiences that are the ones that need to be heard. So how can I bring that to light, and how can I make people understand through their eyes why this is so important, why this is so magical, especially when they can't do it for themselves. So it's been such a honor to have this title and have these experiences where I get to really celebrate the children and what they're doing and why it's so important to invest in them. We were never trained for the family coaching model. We were trained to collaborate with families. We were trained, with how to work with children, but not necessarily to coach and support families in this way. And I think it has been so successful with that family coaching model that I think moving forward, it should be a focus of schools to provide this for teachers, so that teachers, have that in their toolbox of how they can help coach and support families, because I think there is so much value in that. And I mean, to watch some of my families be empowered and to gain that confidence in working with their child, to learn how to use their communication device, to learn how to follow a schedule, to learn there's so much that we can help and do. It's hard in a normal school day though, right? Because of the time constraints, but I think we have room to grow here to really even strengthen what we do, but that we need the coursework and the education and the professional development to help with that, because I think it's easier for some educators than others, and as with everything, but in a lot of other ways we get the training. When I look at Delaware as a whole, and with talking from teachers from all across the state, there are areas that that don't have internet access, that it was very challenging. And I think it just kind of, when we think of education, part of that now involves technology. It's just that is our future. Like, that is what's happening. And I think we really need to think of access and opportunity, because in this day and age, like, it is almost like a necessity, like a human right to have access to internet and technology. And how can we make that happen for all families so that we are giving that equitable chance for education, especially now when we, can't access buildings in the same way that we have in the past. So, and I've heard lots of ways that educators are kind of getting around that, providing written work, and like delivering that or mailing those home. So I think people are getting creative. I think people are working really hard to make it happen. I know our district was extremely proactive in their approach to getting the technology out, to making the hotspots happen, expanding internet. But I do think, again, there are areas where it was more challenging. I think the biggest thing is like collaboration, because normally we met all the time, popping into each other's rooms. So just continue. I think it's sometimes harder to do. It's easy to do some ways in a virtual world because you can connect with people like we are, that would we ever have met? Would we ever been able to do this? But I also think some people it's their burnout. Like, there is Zoom fatigue. And I think sometimes between the Zoom fatigue and just having yet another meeting, like, it's making collaboration harder. You're feeling a little more isolated. In education, it can feel isolating if you let it. Like, you can shut your door and just do your own thing, and it can feel very isolating. But I encourage, open that Zoom screen window, open your classroom door, and really take the time to collaborate, because everyone is going through this right now. Everyone is having it's hard, and you can really gain a lot of knowledge and strength from your colleagues.